Well, good morning once again, and welcome also to the people who are visiting us online. It's our joy to be with you today. For those who might not know, I'm called Bharati and joined up here by Surendra and also by Lorna and Badri. So, you know, I read the affirmation and I read the reading, and I'm always trying to figure out, well, where am I supposed to pick this up? There's so much in these readings that it's hard to know exactly where to start. But then I was thinking, okay, energy. Well, what is this? This is the age of energy, Dwapara Yuga. So I just got totally into the yugas and was thinking about, oh, well, okay. So those of you who might not be familiar with it, the yugas simply means there's cycles of time where the energy, basically, the consciousness that's predominant in the world changes through time. We've come out of an age, the lowest age called Kali Yuga, which is the age of materialism, when most people only recognize the form. And now we're moving up into ascending Dwapara Yuga, the age of energy. It's interesting to me. This has been around 300 years since we started to move into this upper part of the cycle. Well, we're still in the lower part, but at least heading up. So where we become more aware that something is behind the matter, you know, our bodies, the world, whatever we can see and feel, which at one time was all people could understand, and now we understand better, at least, that behind the material form is energy. When we get to higher yugas yet, which we won't do while we're still in these bodies, because we're talking, you know, hundreds of years, thousands of years. It's like, okay, we could be here again, but we won't be here as we are now. But moving up that direction, the general populace comes more and more into that consciousness. And it was right around the turn of the century, that was the 20th century, the 1900s, that this became somewhat more common knowledge. Like Einstein came out with the theory of general relativity in 1905. I was always aware of like 1895 because that's when X-rays were invented, and so, along with a few other people here, I used to be a chiropractor, and that's when chiropractic was invented. Ta-da! But anyway, so a lot was happening then, and as we go farther and farther into Dwapara Yuga, things just are going pew. And in every area of life. I wanted to just talk a little bit about my own experience with that, because earlier in time, there were a lot of changes, but they hadn't come to be nearly what they are today. So when I was 15 years old, my father had a severe heart attack. And what the medical profession had to offer him at that time was bed rest, oxygen, and blood thinners. He spent a month in the hospital and then 2 months at home on bed rest, which of course now we know is like probably the worst thing you could do. But you know, he had good insurance, and so it's like you're thinking, oh, well, you know, that was one of those good news, bad news things. So fast forward 30 years, and I'm 45. I'm teaching school out in rural Alaska in an Eskimo village on the Bering Sea coast, and I start having some symptoms. I don't know what they are, but anyway, long story short, I had a heart attack too, and I ended up getting medevaced into Anchorage and spent time in the hospital, but there was a lot more that was offered to me to try to deal with that problem than there had been for my father. So I got, an angiogram, and they gave me something to dissolve the little clot that was there, and then they went in, and this was just before stents were used in Anchorage, at least. So they scraped out my coronary artery, and after, a few days or whatever, I was okay. And I went on, so this has been more than 30 years later, it's like, and I'm still here. And thanks to other procedures and so forth, I'm in relatively good shape. It's like, whoa, all right. And there just was so much more, and it's expanded so much since then. I was talking to my cardiologist a couple days ago, and we were just talking about how much more there is now, even compared to what I experienced within the last 30 years. But that's happening in every area. I was binge watching movies for a little while over the kind of vacation period, and one of the movies I watched was Hidden Figures, which is about the women who were called computers, who worked with NASA, because this was before mechanical computers were commonly used. And so they were people who had great skills with math, and they could do that math very, very quickly. It would just, if you haven't seen that movie, I highly recommend it. It's so amazing how they were able to just do this. But you just saw what was coming. By the end of the movie, the IBM computers were up and running. They were still the cards, the punch cards and so forth, which most of you are probably too young to remember when you would get those with your bills, electric bills or whatever, and they always said, do not fold, bend, spindle, or mutilate. So, but with all every area where all this expansion of knowledge and technology and everything is happening, of course, it's not all been great. I mean, what was one of the first things that happened was the atomic bomb was developed. So there's the energy, which could be good, but it's like, how do we apply it in the world? And things can go really wrong. During this period of ascending Dwapara Yuga, there's so much energy, and of course, much of it is going to be erroneously applied. So greed is likely to increase. All sorts of the whole system with money and land and power and all that stuff is likely to get worse before it gets better. Now, in some ways, that's kind of, you're going, wah. In fact, I've known a lot of people recently who just are so pulled down by the general energy in the world and what might be going to happen. And I had, talk about binge watching, I'd also watched Lord of the Rings again and was listening to the part where Frodo, who's carrying this ring that has to be destroyed, so of course his life is in danger every instant, and it's very wearing, and he said, I wish that this had never come to me. Can I read it? I wish none of this had happened. And Gandalf, who's the wizard, who's his advisor, kind of says, well, so do all who live to see such times, but that's not for them to decide. All we have to do is decide what to do with the time that is given to us. And I could just so relate to that, because whatever is happening, our choice is pretty much always the same. It's, what do we do? what do we do? And we are so fortunate that we have guidance in our lives. We have all these masters who've come specifically to try to help us out, us meaning everybody in the world, to make it through the difficulties of these times and to maximize the positive energy that comes with the Dwapara Yuga and to minimize the other part of it that's happening. So it's interesting to me. I'm thinking, okay, so why do they come when they come? And we heard from the Bhagavad Gita reading, when vice predominates, when virtue declines. And really, you look back through history, you could say that about every single time, because somewhere in the world, for some people, things are grim, and other places, not so bad. However, of course, the masters know, they're fully aware of the cycle of time, and they know what's happening, and so they make a special effort, and they started, a couple hundred years ago, and maybe longer than that. Well, yeah, way longer than that with Jesus and Babaji, to be here for us when we need that extra help. There was some time ago, it's been, I don't know, probably a decade or two, in Italy at Assisi, where there's the Ananda Center there was some big thing they were planning, some big event in Rome. And then one day, the police show up at the Assisi Center, and they arrest all the leaders of Ananda Assisi, on some trumped-up charges, but there they are. And so what happens, of course, is that other people step up and carry on with the event. Meanwhile, these people are sitting in jail. And, what do? What can they do while they're in prison, hoping that things are going to be resolved soon and they'll be out and back to work? Well, they do what they always do. They pray, they chant, they meditate, they serve each other and the other people there as well as they can in whatever opportunity arises. That's what they do. And as time goes on, of course, the whole energy of the prison changes because they're holding that energy. That's what we need to do too. Whatever, if the circumstances around us are difficult, and Yogananda pretty much promised us that there would come times when things would be very difficult, no family will be left untouched, and you look around, you're thinking, yeah, I can see that. Hasn't happened to me personally yet. Well, not in a major way at least, but whether it's that or whether we're feeling great, what is ours to do is to stay as centered as we can, to pray, to chant, to meditate, to serve to the best of our ability in whatever circumstances we're in. The more we can feel that light within ourselves, the more we can express it, the more we can share that unconditional love that we get all the time from Divine Mother. It's always there. Then we can start to feel more and more that joy, that unending joy. And we can be part of the solution for sure, if there even is. You look at the world as what am I trying to say? Yeah, well, anyway, the ups and downs, how they always go. When we see that is an illusion, and what's behind it all is the one constant, which is the divine, the light, the love, the joy, the wisdom, the power, the calmness, and so forth. And that's what we want to feel, for sure. Why wouldn't you, you know? And that's what we want to share with the world. I'm going to just close with a lovely poem of Paramahansa Yogananda from Whispers from Eternity. It's, I think, particularly appropriate when we're thinking of the avatars coming to help us out. It's called God's Boatman. I want to ply my boat many times across the gulf after death and return to Earth's shores from my home in space. I want to load my boat with all those waiting, thirsty ones who've been left behind, that I may carry them to the opalescent pool of iridescent joy, there where my Father distributes his all-desire-quenching liquid peace. Oh, I will come again and again, crossing a million crags of suffering. With bleeding feet I will come, if need be, 1 trillion times, as long as I know that one stray brother is left behind. I want thee, O God, that I may give thee to all. I want salvation, that I may give it to all. Free me then, O Lord, from the bondage of this body, that I may show others how they too can free themselves. I want thine everlasting happiness, but I want also to share it with others, that all my brothers may find the way to happiness forever and forever in thee.